Some people have Halloween, some people have Christmas, some people have Labor Day if that's their thing, some people like the 4th of July or their birthday, and some people even have Pretzel Day.
Well, I like Pretzel Day.
But I have the D23 Expo, which is sort of like all of those things rolled into one, and it takes place every 2 years. It's also where I treated myself to this Worldwide Engineering Brigade jacket for Avengers Campus from the Mickey's of Glendale store at the Expo. And I am going to take it off because it's a heavy jacket and it's really hot in this room. So I have been attending this expo since 2011, and I've been to almost every single one of them. I missed 2013 for a family affair, but other than that, I was quick to jump back in with 2015, then I went to 2017, and I was back this year for 2019. The build-up into the 2019 expo was just something else, because there were conspiracy theories about the website Mice Chat and their founder Al Lutz not really being who we thought he was, but that's a whole other mess. And they wrote propaganda to make Bob Iger look good. And then there was this alleged accounting fraud scandal going on with the Disney parks, but we weren't sure if that was true because it happened to be from someone who was fired or something. And of course, there was the big news with the bombshell of Spider-Man leaving the MCU. But of course, the show must go on, and it did go on without a hitch. Nothing really impeded that. Maybe other than the Spider-Man news. Other than the Spider-Man news, the expo still happened as planned. I was at all 3 days of this expo, so there's so much to talk about and unpack, and that's why this video is kind of late. So, without further ado, in the words of our favorite boy who never grew up, here we go. In years past, you would show up to the expo, and there was a designated area where you could make your reservations, either store pass or stage pass. It basically worked like a fast pass. You just showed up at the designated time for your shopping or right before your panel, and you didn't have to worry about it. However, you still had to worry about getting in line to make that reservation, so it was still kind of a headache. So for this expo, they announced they were going to do it online, and you just typed in the code on the back of your badge. You just typed in that code onto their website, and you would have access to make those reservations. And we were all super excited because instead of getting a little slip that you might lose, it was just right on this badge. So everyone was excited. We thought like, oh, this is going to alleviate so many headaches and so much stress. It caused more stress and more headaches. The reservations were supposed to go live on August 16th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that was fine, and I was mentally prepared for that. Except my relatives invited me out to Disneyland that day. I thought we were going on Thursday, but it turned out to be the Friday. So I was prepared to make my reservations inside the park and just not pay attention to them for like an hour or two. So as we were on Main Street just waiting for everyone else to show up, that was fine by me. And 12 p.m. happened, and I got nothing on my phone. It said server error. I forgot exactly what it said, but there was a server error, and I checked back in a group chat I was in. I had muted it starting from the 10 minutes before reservations went live, and it said everyone was saying we have to do it again in an hour, and we were all just stressing out because we had set aside that time to make our reservations at 12. The rest of my relatives showed up, and we took a picture with the floral Mickey at the front of Disneyland. Then we kind of dispersed, and we all did whatever we wanted to do inside Disneyland, but I was still stressing out because I still had to like not pay attention to them and kind of zone them out, but not be rude and still kind of pay attention to them and lead them to the Millennium Falcon. So I was still glued to my phone, and 1 p.m. hit, and I was in line for the Falcon. And the same exact thing happened. And server error, and I went back to go check that group chat, and we were all just saying that we had planned for this, and someone sent a message from the D23 Twitter or whatever it was that reservations were pushed back to the next day. I mean, I got to enjoy Disneyland that day, So the next day happened, and my relatives went to a Chinese restaurant somewhere in Orange County, and ultimately I got the reservations. I was still stressed, but the fact we were at a restaurant meant that I kind of got to zone them out more because I wasn't leading them around. But they were still telling me to like switch seats and things right when my little stick man got to the end of the virtual queue. And with that, why wasn't it just a virtual queue from the beginning? I'm still stressed about that. Still super triggered if you mentioned it. So, yeah, I'm just glad that's over. For Friday, I was able to reserve spots for the Disney Legends ceremony and a conversation with Bill Farmer at the Walt Disney Archives stage. For Saturday, I was able to reserve the Haunted Mansion panel, as well as Joe Rohde's Immersive Worlds panel. So yes, I was in presence of the famous earring. On Sunday, I was able to reserve the Art of Disney Storytelling and the Disneyland 59 panel, which was about the Matterhorn, the submarines, and the monorail. But because by that point I felt like I didn't really get to walk the show floor as much, I skipped that panel. Unfortunately, I skipped the Disneyland 59 panel because at that point on Sunday, it just felt like I didn't really get to walk the show floor, and so much of my experience was panel, because I even got to squeeze in some extra panels. So I just really missed walking the show floor. It seemed like a panel that I would have liked, but there were so many things I hadn't gotten to do by Sunday that I really just wanted to do those things. Here are some of the highlights of the panels that I did attend. Well, first we have the Disney Legends, which is always really cool. Of all the annual things that happen at this expo, which is the Legends, the studio panels, and the park announcements, Legends I always feel like is the most underrated and underappreciated. I mean, you still kind of have to like hustle to get in, but it's always less of a hustle than the Saturday morning studio panel or the parks panel on Sunday. And it's such an easy way to like guarantee seeing some celebrities too. I've been in the same room as the voice of the Disney princesses, and Mark Hamill, and Stanley, Kermit the Frog. He wasn't a Disney legend, but they were honoring Jim Henson, and Kermit was there to perform Rainbow Connection with Ralph. So the 2019 class of Legends was just a fantastic group, and they all deserved the honor for different reasons. Well, they deserved it for different reasons, and you just kind of knew of the reason. Like, obviously you had Robert Downey Jr. for playing Tony Stark for the past decade. Like, whether or not you think Marvel belongs in Disney, like, by and large, it's a Disney property now, and it is a performance that has touched so many people around the world, as we've seen with the fallout of Avengers Endgame. You had Ming-Na Wen for playing Mulan and Agent May in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Jon Favreau for directing Iron Man and Lion King and Jungle Book. No matter what your opinions are on Lion King and Jungle Book, like, I think it was at least deserved for Iron Man at the very least. Of course, there was Bette Midler, who played Winifred Sanderson in Hocus Pocus. I was kind of surprised she wasn't a Disney legend already, just because she's just a legend altogether. And obviously there's Kenny Ortega, who did Newsies, There's Kenny Ortega, who did the movie version of Newsies and Hocus Pocus, High School Musical, the Descendants series. When Bob Iger said his name and announced him to go on stage, like, I just shot up into my standing ovation there. Like, that man was responsible for my childhood. I bought this shirt because High School Musical still owns me. There's Barnett Ricci, she was like the creator of Fantasmic. Like, when her video said that, the room exploded, and like that, it had the same amount of applause and energy as Robert Downey Jr. did. And of course there is Wing Ti Chow, who oversaw a lot of things in the development of Shanghai Disneyland. And there were newscasters like Diane Sawyer and Robin Roberts. The only one I kind of question, and I'm going to risk losing half of my audience, what audience, is Christina Aguilera. I'm sorry, it's probably the end of my internet career now, but her speech kind of felt like the same energy as listening to the popular kids who used to bully you for liking Disney talk about why they liked Disney. Like, she called Sound of Music a Disney film, or at least it sounded like she called Sound of Music a Disney film, and this was after calling herself the ultimate Disney fan. And I know that Sound of Music, I guess, kind of is a Disney movie now, but doesn't seem like she seemed to know that it wasn't. She said that really confidently, and you could hear the murmurs in the room like, is that a Disney movie? Okay, it was super cool to hear her sing Reflection, and I get it. She sang Reflection, she was in the Mickey Mouse Club, but I have heard the horror stories of her and cast members, and I think this could have gone to someone else. I think I would pick someone who has contributed to the Walt Disney Company in a couple of different ways. I don't know. Maybe they were in some movies by Touchstone Pictures. Maybe they voiced an animated character in a movie or two. Maybe 3 movies even. Or maybe they even said goodbye to this animated character recently. I don't know. Maybe they were the first actor to ever play Walt Disney in an official Disney production. Yeah, I'm talking about Tom Hanks. I've bothered every single one of my friends about this, and I've aired my grievances to them. I was really holding out hope that he would be a surprise Disney legend announced on the day of. Like, I think Whoopi Goldberg was a surprise legend at the last Expo. But how have we not honored Tom Hanks yet? Tim Allen is a Disney legend, and why? I mean, I think he deserves the legend honor for playing Walt alone, and I think this summer would have been the perfect summer to do an honor for Tom Hanks, because we said goodbye to Woody this year. God! Armor was really cool. He did some voices for us, and he talked a little bit about his career, especially as playing this guy, Goofy. He's just such a warm, friendly presence, and you know he loves doing Goofy, and you know he loves his job. He even talked a little bit about Kingdom Hearts, and he said that they record the lines out of order, so he never knows what's going on. And that's okay, Bill, because neither do we. And we are getting the story in order, so you're not alone, Bill. I think one of the absolute highlights of the panel was when the moderator asked Bill if there's anything that he wants to do, anything he hasn't gotten the chance to do yet. And Bill Farmer said, I want to do another Goofy movie. And the crowd went wild, so Disney, please, give us another Goofy movie. My girlfriend and I had some extra time, so to kill some of that time, we went to go watch the screening of High School Musical, the musical, the series, in the arena. And much to our surprise, they brought out Corbin Bleu to introduce the episode. They showed us the episode, and just because it says High School Musical doesn't mean that this is Disney Channel. Remember that this is Disney Plus. So it's a little bit more mature. They kind of curse. They're kind of like lighter curses, like they say crap and suck, which you would never hear that on Disney Channel. Like, the script itself is actually pretty strong. It stirs up some nostalgic feelings without pandering like a whole lot. I don't know how I can explain it, but I will say that it was a smart decision to kind of remove the show like 1 degree from the movie. It's not the same universe as the movie. Like, at one point, you see them kind of refer back to the movie. One of the characters holds like the DVD cover, and I was like, I used to have that. But it's so fresh, and it stands on its own. Like, these characters are not connected to Troy and Gabriella in any way, and I think that works to its benefit. So instead of camping out for the studio panel, we spent the first hour of the day in line for Mickey's of Glendale. And then we continued the whole Imagineering thing by going to the Haunted Mansion Celebrating 50 Years panel, which, it was just a bunch of Imagineers talking, so I was like enthralled the whole time, and these were current Imagineers talking about the Imagineers who created the ride. So they talked about Yale Gracie and his special effects, and the Mark Davis artwork, and Exitentio's script, and some of the highlights were the Skipper's Tour of the Haunted Mansion, which was a video with some Jungle Cruise skippers just doing puns about the Haunted Mansion. And the other highlight that I absolutely loved was when they did the dramatic reading of Exitentio's original script for the Haunted Mansion. So they brought out his granddaughter, and the Sally Slater face character, that's the ballerina in the Haunted Mansion, and of course, none other than Uncle Deadly. So already this panel had more Muppets and Haunted Mansion than the Studios panel, so I was content. Saturday was just sort of the Imagineering day, because I got to go to the Immersive Worlds panel. That was hosted by Joe Rohde, and you might not know who he is, but he oversaw Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. He did Animal Kingdom and Pandora in Animal Kingdom. Also in attendance were Jeanette Lomboy, one of the designers on Aulani, Luke Mayrand, a designer on Shanghai Disneyland, and specifically Treasure Cove at Shanghai Disneyland, which is themed to Pirates of the Caribbean, and of course Scott Trowbridge, who recently designed Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and also the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. But they all talked about their challenges in bringing their immersive world to life. And there was the 80 Years of Marvel panel with writers C.B. Cebulski and Tom Brevoort, and they just talked about Marvel's humble beginnings from the start as Timely Comics to just about everything. That panel made me so aware of how some of these characters have become icons, and they're basically like rock stars now. A lot of people were cheering for the most obscure characters, and I know the D23 crowd is not necessarily the Comic-Con crowd, but it felt like that in that minute, because, yeah, we were all just cheering for characters we had no idea existed 10 years ago. My girlfriend and I decided to go to Brain Games, hosted by Keegan-Michael Key, just because we adore that man, and we adore Key and Peele, and we thought, when are we ever going to be in the same room as him? When will we get that chance? So we took that opportunity, and yeah, that was a really fun panel. It was a lot of Battle of the Sexes challenges, and that was really fun. And we saw a couple clips from the Brain Games, the return of Brain Games. I don't know, I've seen some of the show. I didn't follow the show. I don't know if it's a new season or if it's a new show entirely. But we saw some clips of that. And there was a video appearance by Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker. A few hours later, we went to Art of Disney Storytelling, which was also in the arena, so we went to the arena twice. Later that day, we went to the Art of Disney Storytelling, hosted by John Stamos and Caitlin Stamos. This panel included Floyd Norman, who was an artist on Sleeping Beauty and The Jungle Book, Sword in the Stone, some early Disney animation movies, as well as some of the Renaissance and some Pixar movies like Toy Story 2, Mulan, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Tony Baxter, who I have talked about on this channel before. He did Star Tours, Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain. Don Hahn, who was a producer on Beauty and the Beast and Lion King and some modern Disney films, mostly from the Renaissance. And Paul Briggs, who has worked on Frozen and Big Hero 6, and he'll be directing Raya and the Last Dragon. I was just in awe at being in the presence of, like, living legends, because, you know, these are the guys that I would like to be someday, and yeah, I love them all. They've all done some incredible work, and I will say that it's always fun to see John Stamos' Disney fandom, because he is not ashamed of it, and I love it. And yeah, again, he's another guy that I want to be when I grow up. John wanted to bring Tony on Splash Mountain to get the picture, and he ended up blocking Tony Baxter in the picture, so hopefully they got to redo it. And of course, I mentioned I skipped Disneyland 59 to walk the show floor, so without further ado, here's a little mini tour of the show floor. So of course, the Animation Pavilion is a D23 mainstay. They had the Disney side and the Pixar side. They had a display of custom Forky crafts and Guinevere, the van from Onward. There was the Marvel Studios Pavilion, and unfortunately, a lot of the reservations for these events and signings at Marvel Studios were just gone by the time I got to make my reservations. But the pavilion was still open to walk through when things weren't going on. They had some of the costumes from movies on display. Some of these costumes are going to be in projects we haven't seen yet. Some of these costumes will be featured in the Black Widow movie or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, so that was really exciting. There was also this really big mural, and it had all the heroes that were going to be in Phase 4, and it didn't hit me that these were going to be Phase 4 heroes until I noticed that 2 heroes were not on it, and my heart broke all over again. Of course, Disney's big thing that they wanted to push at this expo was Disney Plus. So they had their own little pavilion. Things like throwback screenings and app demonstrations. I watched a whole episode of Even Stevens while we were there. It was a musical episode.
We went to the moon in 1969, not 1970, a year before.
You can have up to 10 people on one account. You can download your content to 7 different screens, and you can have up to 4 screens watching at the same time. So, moment of silence for Netflix, I guess. Who knew that Disney Plus was going to be the thing to kill the Demogorgon? Another tradition for this expo is the Walt Disney Archives exhibit. First couple expos just had a general Treasures of the Archives exhibit. That's actually the shirt I'm wearing now. This year's exhibit was hero and villain costumes. So one of the highlights of this year's exhibit was seeing the costumes of all three Mary Poppins actresses together in one space. So you had Julie Andrews' Mary Poppins, Emily Blunt's Mary Poppins, and the Broadway Mary Poppins outfit. And there were all these different costumes from across Disney history. They had some Tron outfits, they had outfits from some of the live-action remakes, like Cinderella. It was just this incredible exhibit of different costumes, and there were no Haunted Mansion costumes because there's no Haunted Mansion movie. My favorite pavilion this year was definitely the Disney Parks Pavilion, where Imagineering was on hand to talk about some of the changes coming to all these parks. Avengers Campus had its own dedicated room, while Epcot took up the majority of everything else, with a few other projects for other parks sprinkled in. So let's move ahead into some of the stuff that I got. Here's the haul of pins and buttons from the expo. So these Anna and Elsa buttons were from the Animation Pavilion. There was kind of this thing called the Crystal House, which recreated a scene in the Frozen 2 trailer, I assume will be in the movie. And it was the scene where Anna runs out into the balcony and there's just hanging crystals everywhere. They're suspended in midair. And once you took your photo, you got these. There were also these buttons from the Gold Member Lounge. I have one that's Mickey colored, so it was pretty cool to have one that's Goofy colored, Cruella, Buzz, and Ariel. And one of the first things from the Gold Member Lounge was this pin. Not everyone got this pin, because there was a virtual prize wheel where, one of those things where you spun it every time and everyone was a winner. Some people won Coca-Cola bottles from Galaxy's Edge, some people won D23 slippers. I got a pin. So this pin is of the Onward van. You had to take a picture of it and post it on social media with the hashtag #PixarOnward, and you got a pin. And I got the last one at the moment on Saturday. Sorry, Caitlin. So this one is from the Team of Heroes Pavilion, otherwise known as the Volunteer Booth, and basically just did the walkthrough of what they do in the children's hospitals, and you supplied a bag of supplies that would go to the kids in the hospitals, and you got this pin out of it. And this pin was different every day. I only know that this is the Friday pin. I think there was a Black Panther one on Saturday. I don't know, it's Sunday. So this was from the Namco booth that had the video game Tsum Tsum Festival out for demo. And it does have the classic Tsum Tsum video game from the app, but it also has a big party mode so it's kind of like Mario Party, but with Tsum Tsums, and just one of those games where everyone's going to get mad at each other. This is a cool one. Honda's usually at the expo, so at the last expo they did the minivan as a pin. But for this one, they had a cool little one that says D23 Expo, and it shifts to the Honda robot, Asimo. I think that's his name, right? I don't know. They didn't really call him that at the expo. They just said Honda robot. But they had an exhibit on Autopia. This is a really cool pin, too. Epcot was a huge part of this expo, so they had some Epcot pins for sale of each of the pavilions. I really wanted the Imagination Pavilion, but I don't think they had that one by the time I got to the register, so I got the C's. And I did really like the artwork they had of this expo, where they had Woody representing Pixar, Elsa for animation, Black Panther for Marvel, and Mickey just for the whole company. I kind of wanted to complete the set, but I was content with just having Woody. This was by far the most expensive pin to get. I paid $140 for this pin, but now I got Disney Plus free for 3 years, and I don't have to worry about it for another 3 years. An overview of some of the non-pins that I got. Things from the Gold Member Lounge. I got this license plate frame that says Proud Member of D23. I don't even own a car, but I will keep it for when I do. And I got this Epcot patch from Universe of Energy. It says right there. I had this Journey into Imagination patch. I have it, actually, still, because they were giving these patches out with a Disney World issue of the D23 magazine a couple years back. And here is the Gold Member gift that they were giving out. I'm gonna kind of pan down. I kind of put things on either corner just because it keeps rolling up, and there was no real way to show it off. So yeah, you've got the Millennium Falcon and the Orange Bird, which seems to be as fast as the Millennium Falcon. Eve, they're a bunch of different characters from all the Disney IP. So there's like Mary Poppins, there's even Sora and Thor. The Swine Trek. I was really happy for the Swine Trek to be included. I'm gonna take that off and show you guys the variant that they gave us of Marvel Comics 1000, which for the first time shows Mickey Mouse interacting with the Marvel heroes, because this is the 10th anniversary of Disney buying Marvel Comics and Marvel Entertainment, and in those 10 years they've been very selective of how to do the Disney Marvel crossovers. Of course, they've had like Big Hero 6 and the Disney Kingdoms comics that I've mentioned once or twice before, but this is the first time that Mickey Mouse and Spider-Man and all the other Marvel heroes are in the same image. Speaking of Marvel, I got this really cool replica lanyard from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, I like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't love it. And the reason I say that is because I fell behind. I fell so behind on this show. But I loved the first couple seasons that I did see, and anyone who knows season 1 will remember that Eric Koenig or Billy Koenig, or the Koenig brothers, constantly asked Coulson for lanyard identification, and that's what this is. And this little fold out is like the certificate of authenticity. Here's the lanyard without everything else. So yeah, that's really cool. My new favorite Funkos, I don't know if I'm gonna unbox these, the Dapper Dans, and yeah, this is really cool. All 4 Dapper Dans. I think it would be really cool if you got the chance to have them like sign it, but they don't really do formal signings for the Dapper Dans. And on the back, it just has a rendering of them, and the back of that is Main Street. So again, really cool. I'm pretty happy with having bought this, and it's specifically the Disneyland Dapper Dans, so I appreciate that. In addition to some of that stuff, I got this High School Musical drawstring backpack from the screening of the pilot episode of the show. I think that just about covers it from me. I think I covered everything I possibly could. And if you went to the expo this year, I hope that you kind of got to relive it through this video. If you didn't go to the expo this year, hopefully you kind of got a glimpse of what it was like this year. I'm sure I will see some of you guys at the next expo, because as it stands, as of the writing, filming, and publishing of this video, I am going to the next expo. There'd have to be something big for me to not go to the next one. Like, they'd have to move it out of California, or just cancel it outright, or I would have to die before the next expo for me to not go to that one. But if you're not planning to go to that one and I won't see you there, then don't worry about it. You've got 2 years to change your mind. And if you're still not sure about it, I still have another video coming out in October. So in other words, I will see you real soon.